I usually do these sort of things off the cuff, and Guild staff tend to find that quite scary, because they never really know what I'm going to say or do, but they've had faith in me, but I have got some notes to keep me going, so bear with me. I'll try and make it seem as natural as I can. I didn't see today coming round as quickly as it has, but I'm nearing the end of my journey. And to anyone who's worried that I might end as I began, don't worry, I'm feeling very conscious. So anybody who's been into my office will have seen the quote on my wall from John F. Kennedy in his famous speech launching the race to the moon. And it says, "We choose to do this not because it's easy, but because it's hard." And that's been a fairly appropriate narrative to my year. It hasn't always been plain sailing. It's been a huge learning curve, and along the way we've made some mistakes. Fortunately, my ticket was only as far as the suburbs of Central City, which I'll take as a necessary battle scar as my year as president of the Guild. And what a year it's been. I've had my assumptions, beliefs and values continuously reshaped and challenged. And I remember sitting on the benches listening to Mark's leaving speech, thinking today seems so far away, not knowing what I might say or what might come our way during the course of the year, but here we are. Now, in January, all the officer team go what's called through a 360 process, and this involves us being reviewed by various people, the Guild, the University and elsewhere, in order to give us constructive feedback for the second half of our terms. This feedback session is delivered by an independent consultant with over a decade of experience working in 24 students' unions. And the first thing that he said to me in this feedback session was this, that in all his years and all his experience, he'd never seen a student body that beat up its sabbatical officers, and particularly its president, like Birmingham Guild of Students. I don't know what that means. Guild Council this year as a collective or as individuals, in these meetings online, at 3 in the morning, elsewhere, you have negatively affected my mental health. The mental health of members of my team and of ordinary members of the Guild. Once we take office, I think it's too easily forgotten that we're people too, who stood for the right reasons. We have private lives, evenings, weekends, but still an unwavering resolve to do the best that we can for students. Guild Council, we've done our most to respect your primacy in the democratic structures of the Guild. I've fulfilled mandates that I've disagreed with, I've had words quite literally put into my mouth, writing public statements and rarely a word of thanks. A year ago I was a Guild councillor and I stood for election in order to represent my fellow students, my compatriots, and achieve things that I thought would make a difference. What I found was an increasingly petty, aggressive chamber rife with hypocrisy and contempt for the officer team. Very little has changed, except perhaps an amazing ability not to get to the end of agendas after 5 hours. But with so many bright minds and passionate individuals, there is so much potential in this room. But this chamber is not effective, and it's not encouraging people to get involved in Guild politics. In a perfect world, a structure like this is ideologically sound, but for all that the officers are dragged through in the names of accountability, councillors are only accountable to themselves. Tom, VPDR-elect, where are you? You're over there. I implore you, when you get into office, follow the sentiment from today. Review Guild Council, its structure, its atmosphere, because this model doesn't work, but if it does, it can be amazing. So when people look back on this year, on my team, what might they say? Well, they might not think of us as being remarkable. They won't be saying, well, that was a controversial year, quite like they did for Mark's team last year. And they might not be talking about us like the infamous team of Fabian's year. But you know what? That doesn't bother me. I know some would have wanted me to be the great reformer, strongly leading from the front and taking the Guild in an exciting direction. But the Guild that I inherited wasn't ready for that. The Guild I inherited needed healing first. We all know what happened last year. And when my team was elected, there were a fair few naysayers, but we've never pretended to hide our political differences. We've never disempowered each other through attempting collective responsibility or operated as a majority rules executive. In fact, I think I can count on one hand the number of times that SOG has actually voted on anything, but in the whole year. On results night last year, in between feints, I had just about enough energy to utter a few short phrases. And what I promised was this. This would be a year where the Guild provided for students, and this would be a year where the Guild stood up for students. Quietly, but surely, as has often been our style, we have achieved a huge amount. Our ability to affect and resolve change has strengthened. In our first month in office, we pressured a media and broadband provider into investing a six-figure sum into the broadband area, giving them the fastest fibre optic broadband in the UK. And that just set the tone for how amazing the power of students' unions are. We've exerted pressure which has drawn the university to come to the table as an entire executive board and had more students than ever before participate in guild activities and student groups. We have never turned against our own students or officers for taking legal and non-violent political action. Recently, for the first time, the HE unions of Birmingham have united in formally taking a stance on issues affecting over 80,000 students. We were accredited as an investor in people. We helped to influence a relatively positive income in the restructure of physiotherapy, wheelie bins in Selly Oak, the second highest turnout in guild officer elections ever. We've turned around a reduction in the block grant that we received from the university. We've won Best Bar None again, locally and nationally. We've achieved a net reduction in hall fees. We've seriously begun to realign the ethos of the Guild into recognising that students are not all 18 to 21-year-old white middle-class binge drinkers. We are becoming a more responsive, agile organisation, which is increasingly well educated on the challenges that face students and increasingly willing to tackle them. But most of all, we haven't completely imploded. My one aim for this year, the reason I stood for election to this office, was because I thought I was the right person at the right time. I stood for election not for what I would get out of this year, not even for what this year's students would get out of this year, but for students in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. I know we've not been perfect, nobody is, and we've had our moments where we've let it slip, you might have noticed, privately and publicly. But Poppy, my entire year, every decision that I've made and project that I've undertaken has been for you and your team, to ensure that you have the best possible start to your year in office, that a new leaf will genuinely be turned over for you, that you'll be engaged with meaningfully, and that the 30,000 students out there don't completely lose faith in the ability of their officers to keep pettiness out of their jobs. And I'm confident that we've achieved that aim. You have wonderful opportunities to make great gains for the students of the University of Birmingham. This is next year's team. But most of all, it's incredibly comforting and an absolute pleasure to be handing over to a President-elect who I know will be great and will grasp those opportunities with both hands. I'll be watching from afar with a keen eye to see how you all get on, and I honestly wish you the best of luck. As the first second-year president in recent memory, one of my greatest challenges is yet to come. I'm going back to education. I look forward to seeing the strategies that I put in place either carry on to greater success or become reality. And it will be a great pleasure to see the evolution of cashless campus, live entertainment, book fair and improvements to the library. And it will be strange to be a student again, walking around campus knowing there's just discussions that are going on, moving on from when I was involved in them. It's a challenge I'm relishing, though when I'm knocking about, I hope I might be able to study in the Nuffield Centre without fearing for my life. So this is the bit that isn't written down, and it's a few thank yous, and please indulge me for a short while. First of all, the officer team. Working so closely with people on a daily basis for 60 hours a week is absolutely crazy in such a high pressure environment where you've all come from such different backgrounds, and we really have. And somehow when it's mattered, we've managed to pull together, all 7 of us. And that support and those moments when that's happened have been unbelievable. For all that you've talked about my sitting on the fence, you also talked about personal disagreements that we've had. So I'll take something from that. And you've all been challenging. I respect you all so much. And I will speak to you individually, but you've made the year. To the staff, again, I've worked with so many over the course of the year, but not to reiterate what the others have said, you're fantastic. I know most of you probably think I'm an arse. I'm looking over here particularly. And that's been deliberate. Because I've seen the difficulties of being 20, 21, being a student, but also having a position like this in an organisation like this. And I do hope when I'm around next year, I'll be able to come in or find some of you, see you socially and properly get to know you without having to go through the facade. Will and Matt, wherever you are, now successfully teachers in Coventry. You got me on this journey in that wonderful Liberal Democrat Society, and you pushed me to go. You took me into your house during elections when my other housemates had kicked me out, and provided support when I needed it most, and I still see you today, and I hold you as some of my closest friends. Similarly, Meg and Molly, you've been there this year when I've needed you most, and we've all needed each other. I look forward to sharing next year, living together. Molly, you're going to have an absolutely fantastic experience, and I can't thank both of you enough for the friendship and support that you've shown throughout this year. Similarly, Johnny, Hannah, and my campaign team from elections, which numbered about 34 people at the last count. I know I've not seen most of you nearly as much as I should have done, but I will never forget those of you who helped me out, put those hours in, painting, coming out at 6 in the morning, dropped me a text at times throughout the year, just to see how we're getting on. Mark, we didn't agree on everything, and your legacy is my year, and I'll never thank you for that. But when you've lived in Birmingham this year, it's been really, really helpful. When we've met up once a month or so and gone for a drink, it's really been like therapy. And again, thank you, and I hope that we will have a friendship far into the future. Alice, this myth of supposed myths of relationships not making it through the Sabby, unfortunately for us, this did prove too difficult. And that's unfortunate. But when we were together, the support, the time that we spent was absolutely invaluable and pulled me through some of the hardest times. And I'm really glad that we're still there talking, supporting each other, and we'll be around next year. And for that, I can't thank you enough. Mo, my housemate, the non-guilty one, those evenings when I've come back at 11 o'clock and I've moaned to you and you've not understood a word that I'm saying, but thank you anyway. You've provided some perspective, some objectives, some philosophy, and a getaway from the Guild in more ways than one. And finally, my mum and dad. We speak every day, unless I'm in from 7 till midnight and you've gone to bed. But again, the interest that you've shown when you've come down from Leeds at a moment's notice when you felt you needed to is unbelievable, and I truly am thankful for the close relationship that we have and the way that you've supported me through my year. Guild Council, despite the tough times, I have enjoyed coming to work every single day because I still believe in what we as an organisation can do for students, for changing our lives and the world around us. This organisation attracts prospective students. It ensures that in times of need, current students will have the support, and it helps develop us, our skills and our confidence for when we leave university. Never again will most of us be in an environment like this. And as I said at the start of the year, we need to grasp it. We can pursue our passions, whatever they may be. We can fundamentally shape an organisation from the bottom up and visibly see ourselves developing as individuals day by day. Guild Council, it's been an absolute pleasure to serve as your president this year. Whether you're leaving soon or you're staying around next year, whatever it is that you pursue and wherever your lives take you next, I sincerely wish you all the very best.